Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel. April 17th, 2018.
The Kuhner Report is powered by Kelly Financial Services. Cleaning up your financial bull. Get the peace of mind that you deserve at Kelly Financial Services.
I'm in. I'll binge watch all 13 episodes. I'll get it done. I'll get her done. Give me a Friday, half a Friday, and a Saturday to get that done on Netflix. It's Vinnie Penn filling in for Jeff here on the Kuhner Report. Great RKO. We're at 617-266-6868. Tweet at me at Vinnie Penn. Interestingly, it's all about the hookers. I haven't said Comey's tell-all. Less than a year from being unceremoniously let go. I got to talk to this volatile man who I don't really know. He's just been elected president about hookers and the good old days mentioned just about 10 minutes back of the Secret Service that carted around 44 who were constantly wasted and whiling away their hours with hookers. And we were a nation entertained by such antics. It looked as if the police academy reboot was coming our way, but it was going to be Secret Service this time around. And yet you see the efficiency on display when it came to this raid. We can be. All of our branches of government can be efficient when they want to be, when they need to be, when they're forced to be. Let's grab a quick call. I love this, Weymouth. Giggs? Am I saying it right? I grew up with a guy we called Jiggs. His last name was Gigoletti. But Giggs, welcome to the show. I don't think we have him there. Did we lose my man Giggs? Let's move on if we have to then. Too bad, because that was really taking me back to a wonderful time in my childhood. My buddy, Anthony Gigoletti. Let's go to Kevin then. How about this? Oklahoma. I don't know that there's a lot of Gigolettis or Vinnies or Diglios, Jared. But let's head out to Oklahoma. And Kevin, I appreciate you being on hold these last several minutes. What's on your mind?
Not much. What's going on, Vinny?
I'm hanging in there doing my thing.
And doing your thing. Well, I've been enjoying the show. You know, kind of everything kind of ties together. You know, the Republicans, what you're asking about the takedown of conservative hosts. But, you know, it all goes back to a movement. Everybody wants to assign the MAGA movement. You know, they want to tie it to Trump. And that's why everybody is after Trump and everyone's associated with Trump. This movement started back with Ronald Reagan. And then it got sidetracked with HW and the Clintons and GW, and Obama really tried to deal it. And they really thought when they got Hillary in there that they were going to have the death nail in freedom in America. You know, it's a shame. You know, I'm just a dumb truck driver out here in the Midwest. But you guys live there in the cradle of democracy and we're, you know, of our nation right there. And things of this. I used to go out to the East Coast all the time, and yeah, I loved it out there because of all the history. And this is the start of my country that I love so much. And it's just messed up out there now. I hate going out there anymore. But these people want to assign this to Trump, and that's why they want to take it down. And the problem is, not only are these people so stupid on the left that they think this movement is all about Trump, and that's why they want to take him down, because they think if they take Trump down, the people associated with Trump, that they'll stop this movement. This movement is so much bigger than Trump. It's been going on so much longer than Trump is going. But we have people on the right who are the same way. They want to assign this movement to Trump also. The Republicans that the one caller talked about, we do have a one party. We have Republicans, that term rhino. These Republicans are using us. They get up here and lie. How many Republicans ran under the Tea Party banner, and as soon as they got in office, they couldn't spell tea, let alone knew what the Tea Party was all about?
Oh, they spelled it. They just changed it from TEA to TEE and got to the golfing. But Kevin, let me ask you this: what is it exactly you're saying began with Reagan? I'm interested in that.
The rebirth of conservatism,
the
rebirth in freedom in America. When was America was a bright shining light? America was the last hope for liberty in the world. If we lose liberty here, where do you go for it? If this country goes away, where do you go to be free? Reagan started this. That was what Reagan was so successful. I mean, I'm 56 years old. I'm not an old guy. I'm not a young guy. I'm just kind of just stuck. But, that's my last name, Stucky. But, But that was when people started awakening. I mean, Reagan had been doing this for years and years. When you read about Reagan back whenever he was in the Screen Actors Guild, and the communists were running the Screen Actors Guild, and he broke with the Democratic Party, became governor of California. He's been preaching about conservatism and the march of progressives. He had the great speech about health care, right? That they would use health care to control us.
Yeah.
The elitist ruling class, these big corporatists and these big government people that you were talking about, the efficiency of the government agencies. When do the government will protect the government and the allies of government always? All of these alphabet agencies, the IRS, the DOJ, the CIA, the NSA, FBI, who are they protecting? They're not serving and protecting you or me, Vinnie. They're serving and protecting the government and the people who are the allies of the government. That is exactly what's at. Until people wake up and understand that the government is not our friend, that the government wants to control us. Didn't Daniel Webster say, these politicians, They claim that they're going to be great governors, but they intend to govern. They claim they're going to be a nice master, but they intend to be your master. Yeah. We don't need masters. We need to be free people. Let me take care of myself.
Kevin, interestingly, what you say, these branches of government, and you harken back to my words a few minutes back there, but they're efficient when they want to be, or dare I say, when we force them to be. How do you think this border mess, this whole immigration issue, how do you think we ever even got here? Because that branch of, the bureaucracy, the red tape, lethargic Americans who failed at their jobs, government employees who stopped stamping the right paperwork, crossing T's, dotting I's. Otherwise, we wouldn't have turned around one day and went, wait a minute, whoa. How many people are here in the United States illegal? How did it happen? It happened because that branch of government who was overseeing that started doing a real crappy job. They started mailing it in. But this is proof. This raid is proof that these branches can be efficient if they so choose. Right, Kev?
Yeah, well, the immigration thing you're talking about, that's just a ramp up to fundamentally change this country, because they can't get it done fast enough through the electoral process, through little bits of legislation and all this stuff. They can't control enough of us. This is an invasion. I don't call them immigrants. These people are invaders. If you're coming to my country and you're going to fly your flag and speak your language, you're not an immigrant. You're not coming here to be an American. You're coming here to invade my country. You're wanting to change my country into something else. If you want to come here and fly the Russian flag, the Mexican flag, whatever flag, then you need to go back to where you were and fly that flag, because here it's the stars and stripes. I don't care who you are.
How long you been listening to me filling in for Jeff today, Kevin? Do you mind my asking? The last 10 minutes or the last half hour? Or?
No, since the beginning of the show. Lou
because it's interesting. I like what you just said right there. I mean, I'd like to think, and I do think, we do have some immigrants migrating here, wanting the American dream. But yeah, invaders too. I think the invaders outnumber them too. And when you say the flag, there's a street not far from where I live. There's all different flags, this and that. And yet I'm the guy who kicked off today's show saying my son had to bring home Captain America comic books from school because Captain America might have offended the sensibilities of some of the other kids. One, I don't think it would have. Might have their parents, not the kids. And my sensibilities aren't offended by the myriad flags I see hoisted upon the front porches of homes all over my neighborhood here in bucolic Branford, Connecticut.
No, that's fine. But when you want to march down the street chanting how bad my country is, waving your flag, that's a whole different story. I don't mind you flying it on your front porch.
No, Kevin, I'm not calling you out. I'm asking you if you caught me saying, to your point, they want to be able to fly a flag here, yet my kid can't bring a Captain America comic book to school. And that's just, that's the left, that's, man, plenty of Americans who are just damn scared to death. They're scared of confrontation. They're scared of coming off a certain way. They're fueled by a guilt that born out of history books. That everything is mea culpa to them. Everything is, I can't do. That's a teacher who's just worried because she knows the likelihood of at least one parent being ticked by this comic exists. So out of fear, I'm going to say no. And I think that's what Trump represents to many. Sounds, Kevin, Oklahoma, he definitely does to you. No to fear. Fear is something that you give the middle finger to, that you shove, that you tackle. We're raised to tackle our fears. And that's why you're right to say there are those who will be loath to give him any credit at any time. They'd sooner call it bullying rather than tackling and or conquering fear. There's a great call, and I do appreciate you hanging on the line there for as long as you did. Again, it's Vinnie Penn filling in for Jeff here on the Kuhner Report on the great RKO. Love to hear from you, too. Whatever's on your mind, 617-266-6868 is the number. You could tweet at me, at Vinnie Penn. And the question of the day was indeed, has been indeed, before we move on shortly, are conservative radio and TV hosts, are they on the endangered species list? Is it as simple as I say the word boycott? I mean, we're watching Starbucks right now is running scared because of one bad employee at one Starbucks. I didn't even understand. This past weekend, and I guess I should say allegedly bad employee. When I saw boycott Starbucks on my Twitter feed, first I panicked. Am I going to have to? I'm not a boycott guy anyway. If a place does me wrong, I stop going to that place. If I don't like the service, if I'm mistreated, I don't tend to ask questions about the owners, et cetera. I stopped going. I don't hop on Facebook and encourage others not to do. I don't do the anti-Yelp. Or I guess it would be going on, just give the bad review. So I panicked. Boycott Starbucks. Oh, no. When I read the story, I thought, well, but it doesn't say, you're not urging anyone to boycott this Philly Starbucks, this Philadelphia Starbucks. The whole damn thing's got to go. I can't get my cake pops anymore. I can't get my green tea frappuccino, like anything. Can I get the Keurig cups? What if I buy them at a Walmart? Can I get my or it's still Starbucks though? This boycott frenzied. It's amazing. And yet I see that Starbucks, the CEO he's caving. He's talking about, he's conjured up the term unconscious bias. How's that? Unconscious, not subconscious bias. That's what he's levying. That's the term levied here as far as the now fired employee who called the police. A couple of African-American young men came in once, used the bathroom, didn't place an order. To tell you the truth, the story is lost on me because it became all Starbucks is to blame thing. We'll talk about unconscious bias and what's awaiting Starbucks employees in just a little bit. Again, it's Vinnie Penn filling in for Jeff on the Kuhner Report right here on the great RKO. That's no joke, man. I'm bugged out about the whole weed killer thing. I've been using that one weed killer. Now the name is lost on me. It's Vinnie Penn filling in for Jeff for the Kuhner Man on the Kuhner Report here. Day number 2 for me. And Which one? What's that really popular one? It's like the most popular weed killer on the market. And man, I just read some more stuff recently about that I've been breathing that stuff in the better part of over 30 years. Oh man, if you spend enough time Google searching, you'll emerge from that desktop, laptop, whatever device more than bugged out. We're waiting on your call at 617-266-6868. You can tweet at me at Vinnie Penn. Twitter's where I saw the assault on Starbucks, because that's what it is. I don't get it. I really kind of don't get the story. This is just not the way things are supposed to go. This is not the America of my youth. This is not the America of my last 50 years. And I worked everywhere. I've got my man Jared Diglio helming the board. I don't know about you. Maybe you've been a radio guy your whole life. Let me rattle off a few for you from when I turned 16. First job was McDonald's. First thing I learned at McDonald's, interestingly, was everything with the American flag. When it was half staff, when it was full staff, when to take it down, how to take it down. Now, it was a Boy Scout, so it was really more a refresher course. But I'll never forget the day that the midday manager, who might have had 2-3 years on me, just admonished me for even coming close at taking down the American flag and almost hitting the grass with it. Can't touch the ground. I had a family member in the military. This guy showing me how to fold it. McDonald's, job number 1. I was at Wendy's, TJ Maxx, a brief stint at the old retail outlet Caldor, Toys R Us.
Caldor.
Is that going? I don't know if
that's
that
going back.
Yeah. So I had that one in there too. Record stores, comic book store. I'm trying to think of more chains. Really, at one point before I had gotten into radio, I'd had 50 jobs. I drove for a lab where I picked up urine and stool samples for 2 years. I had a route. I would stop. They'd be waiting. They'd hand me the cooler. I'd put it in the van. Drove for that lab. So many jobs. So many different types of work. Some big, like I said, McDonald's, Wendy's, Toys R Us. I don't know if I got that one in there. And what I did, and I got fired from most of them. I think all of them. Or I just stopped showing up. Such are the travails of youth. I didn't represent the brand. I was let go. They apologized on my behalf. Oh, Taylor Rental was another one. I don't know if that's a Northeast Corridor thing or not. That was a great gig. And man, I got let go of there. It was ugly. How I got fired from there. And they moved on. And if an apology was due, I gave it. Nobody gave it in my stead. But here's Starbucks CEO Kevin Johnson meeting with the 2 black men who were arrested at a Philadelphia Starbucks. I mean, being cuffed, bit extreme. And really, as far as PR is concerned, hats off to Mr. Johnson. Just a kind man that he's like, I got to beat these 2. You know what you do, though, Kev? Give me a year if you really feel as if they were wronged. Because I'll be honest with you, RKO listeners, I haven't immersed myself too much in the story, because once I found out, wait a minute, the boycott's on for everything Starbucks, like I got to throw away the Starbucks T-shirt, and I just felt it was all so much. What you do if they were so wrong? Give them a year of Starbucks. Free year, like Kramer. When Kramer, Seinfeld, coffee got spilled on him, and his attorney saw to it. You're set. You're set for a year. You got coffee for a year. That coffee was hot. It was too hot. It was obscenely hot. This CEO is, okay, let go of the employee who went a bit above and beyond, said you can't use the bathroom. You haven't ordered anything. This is only for paying customers, which it is. I mean, we all do know that, though, right? I mean, sometimes I still see the sign, bathroom for paying customers only. And the whole, I'm waiting for some friends. You could still grab your coffee and do that. You wait for friends at dinner, at Starbucks. I mean, half of the plays are writers on laptops, right? Writing screenplays and books that will never be sold. Okay, and then they sat in the store without ordering anything, obstinate. The squaring off took place. But the Starbucks CEO is saying that the incident is reprehensible, fired, reprehensible. Man, he is fueled by a guilt. I don't know where that sucker was born, that guilt. Now he wants to talk about unconscious bias. There was a bias, this former employee, but it was unconscious. Doesn't that mean you're knocked out? Doesn't that mean you're Conor McGregor and Mayweather standing over you? I know there was no knockout there. I thought one was coming. We'll talk about unconscious bias and the training that is coming Starbucks employees' way. Coming up, right here on the Kuhner Report, it's Vinnie Penn filling in for Jeff on the great RKO. Harry Anderson, that whole urban myth, that whole it happens in threes. I can't believe there hasn't been a movie yet. It happens in threes. Sometimes it feels as if it does. You get scared for those. You know, I have a friend who often says, I'm worried about Betty White, and you lose two celebrities and we use a big Golden Girls fan. I feel that way about Stan Lee, Jared. I keep going there, which is going to work for us. We'll be talking with Brad Meltzer in a couple of minutes, best-selling author. I think it's number 3 New York Times bestseller right now, The Escape Artist, and he's a huge comic book fan, and for the right reasons, as if it's for me to decide. And what drove him to write this bestseller, his latest, The Escape Artist, is two worlds colliding. One of which I'm very well versed in. The other, I wasn't. He wasn't. I don't think a lot of you are either. And it's quite a dazzling story. But before we get to that, I want to pick up where we left off. Look at it, the Starbucks story. So, before these Starbucks employees begin their training to quote unquote combat unconscious bias, they'll have to sign off. They'll have to sign the waiver to do so. Everything's going to be waivers pretty soon. There, I guess, was another instance. This is what took its toll on the CEO of Starbucks, who now has decided every single last one of them is bad. On yesterday, a Facebook video taken back in January surfaced in Torrance, California, much like Philly, that black man's he's being asked to leave the store because he got upset that a white customer was given the code to use the bathroom before he ordered food, but he hadn't been given that same code. And Starbucks says, we are aware of the video. Now, I've never been to a Starbucks where there's a code for the bathroom. My Starbucks, the one that I frequent, I don't even know what that means. Is it ocular? Did they have to put their eye up to it? What's going on there?
Yeah, it's retinal and voice activated.
Retinal is it's more of that. What are we going down the road where Starbucks, is Hydra? Is that what we're being led to believe? We're talking about a franchise that typically, I would say, averages six employees per Starbucks, right? Per shift. When I go to mine, there's typically 3 on the drive-through, 3 taking care of as the menu continues to expand. The sandwiches, the cake pops. I love those cake pops. The coffees, and yet the CEO is willing to sit. You could put training in place, or you could just have your managers do a better job of interviewing potential employees and not conjure up more ludicrous terms like unconscious bias. Like, I'm a good person. I guess unconsciously, not even unconsciously, I did choose this person over you to go to the bathroom first. Or I did fear that you might be in here to rob the place. How are they going to rectify this? Is there going to be mind control? Is there what kind of undoing are they? Is there a machine that they'll hook employees up to make sure to undo this bias that exists somewhere and the dark recesses of your 17-year-old goth mind? I mean, I know that's what Starbucks employees used to be. Remember the good old days when Starbucks went in there? It had CDs, and the staff was largely comprised of musicians, wannabe musicians. And Starbucks, like once a year, would put out a CD of like their best employees across the country who made a pretty good record. I guess those days are gone, replaced by unconscious bias training. But you could still hit a Starbucks, read a good book. To that end, one of those books, maybe it's The Escape Artist. Let's go to the phones. You continue to blow my mind, man. Well, I'm on Instagram with you, and all I do is follow female celebrities on Instagram and you. It's like Kardashian, Kate Hudson, Jennifer Aniston, Brad Meltzer.
You know, many people mistake me for hot celebrity women.
I don't know when I made the choice, but the stuff you write about Stan Lee, it's like that stuff that I've harbored and felt since I was 10 years old.
Of course. I mean, listen, you know, the thing we have in common that binds us is that there are great moral lessons at this time where the country has lost its sense of morality, and we need those heroes more than ever. And you know what Stan Lee was trying to do then, what Siegel and Schuster did, you know, when they were young kids. They were 17 years old when they created Superman, but they gave the world something to believe in at a time when they really needed it. And to me, the best part of the story has never been Superman. The best part of the story is Clark Kent, because we're all Clark Kent, and we all know what it's like to be boring and ordinary, in which we do something beyond ourselves. In this world where, you know, I was on a USO tour of all things, entertaining the troops in the Middle East, and right after, you know, soon after that, I realized and found out what happened at Dover, Delaware. And I was like, I was just looking around at the country looking for heroes. And what I found was this place in Dover where they put to rest the country's service members. But also, what struck me is the people who are on top secret missions for the U.S. government. So this is a building that is full of secrets. It's a building full of mysteries, and the people who deal with the dead bodies there know things that no one else knows. But here's what makes them heroes. If you have a funeral and someone gets shot in the head, you close the casket. You don't want anyone to see the gore, and you have the funeral. What they do at Dover is the men and women there are artists. They will resculpt some kid's face because they know that the parents won't believe it until they see their child. They will make sure to work 14 hours to rebuild hands so they can hold their kid's hand for the last time. And some of them won't take overtime for it. And I watch these artists doing this, and I'm like, this is the place that gets it exactly right. And I built the Escape Artist around this exact idea and these heroes that work there. And I just was like, I'm going to build a mystery and a thriller around that.
Was it tough to get back, to switch the gears and get back to a full-on, novel?
There's no difference to me. A good story with a good hero is the same. Here's chapter 1, right? It starts with Nola Brown. Nola's dead. The government says she's dead. And her body is brought to Dover, where they take care of the top-secret bodies. And the guy, the hero Zig of the book, he wants to take care of this body because he knows Nola from when she's little. She was friends with his daughter. And he remembers they were in Girl Scouts together. They were on a campfire together, and a soda can went in the campfire and blew off part of the top of her ear. There was a big accident. And he remembers that. You just don't forget that stuff when you're a kid. So he rolls down the white sheet to take care of this dead person, Nola, and he sees that the ear is perfectly intact. Confused, he runs fingerprints, and he sees this isn't Nola. And as he opens up the body, there's a note inside. And the note says, Nola, you were right. Keep running. And now he knows Nola's out there. He knows she's alive. He knows there are people out to get her. And she's the escape artist. And that's chapter 1 of The Escape Artist. I like when I read a book, I love when I get to learn something. So you get to learn about Dover Air Force Base. My favorite page, one of them, is the first page of the book. And it opens with this. In 1898, a man named John Wilkie was a friend of Harry Houdini, and he was put in charge of the Secret Service. And Wilkie was a magician himself, but it is the only time in U.S. history that a magician was in charge of the Secret Service. And that's page one of The Escape Artist. So we deal with Harry Houdini. We deal with all this amazing history.
When did you start writing this one, Brad? And again, we're on with Brad Meltzer. The new book is The Escape Artist.
3 years. And I've been studying, and it's a crazy thing to kind of study death because, you deal with your own life and your own things. And one of the things I realize is every book for me is something I'm dealing with in my own issues. And what I realized with this one, when you go to Dover Air Force Base and you see, Dover is where they brought the 9/11 victims from the Pentagon. It's where they brought the victims on the USS Cole. It's where they brought the space shuttle victims. And you see all this, like these mass fatalities and this death. The one thing you appreciate is your life, and you realize very quickly, and what it taught me there over the past 3 years, just because you're alive doesn't mean you're living. And I know that sounds so obvious, and I love that Nola, after all the beating she's taken and all the abuse that she's through, that she teaches people how to fight back and teaches, and we all need a little bit of that to come back to life.
Now, is she your first female protagonist in a novel?
Yeah, I did one like 19 years ago. I haven't done one since because I didn't have a cat. The truth is like I write from the guy perspective. I mean, I write male thrillers. That's what I do. But Nola, it's so funny. Like guys are, it's the same thing. The reason you follow, like I think these women on Instagram is like people just love Nola, man. I don't know where she comes from. She just kind of came out fully formed. But the thing that's fun to me is I get to take her, I get to mix with Zig, and I get to mix in this Harry Houdini stuff. And the Harry Houdini stuff is amazing because he was kind of miserable with his life. He was obsessed with death. Yeah. He was so obsessed with death. I love this story. Is he actually had his own private secret service. Harry Houdini literally kept his own little secret service, and I won't ruin it. It's in The Escape Artist. You'll see what they did. And what I wrote in there is real. It's based on real history. But one of the things he did with them is he gave his closest family and friends code words that if any of them died, and he went to a seance, and the person running the seance said, "Oh, Vinnie's back from the grave," he gave them a code word that only they knew and he knew, so he would know if it was really them. And the one that he gave to his mom, forgive. Man, do we all need to do a little bit of that.
That's
not other people, forgiving ourselves for all the crap we've done in our lives. Obviously, the magic is fun, but it was the stuff he was doing for the government that was fascinating. And people don't realize that Houdini did some work for the government. And so when I was building The Escape Artist as a thriller, even though it's modern day, I was like, let's pretend that Houdini's, what he did, and the guy who ran the Secret Service, who was a magician, imagine it still existed today and what was really going on.
I'll leave you with this. I'm assuming you're still doing the I Am, the kid series.
We are.
Obviously, the Stan Lee one is coming, right? I mean, are you playing games?
I want to do Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster also. Yeah,
sure. That story's kind of heartbreaking, too, although they finally got their due. It took a good long time for them to get it. But no Stan Lee one? Not yet?
Listen, I want to do all of them. I want to do Jack Kirby. Come on, I want to do them all. I mean,
and good luck if you try to pull off a Steve Ditko one, because he is famously reclusive. But I'd love it.
No, first of all, a friend of a friend reached out to Steve Ditko to show him what was going on in like the Spider-Man universe today and kind of get his take on certain things.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't Spider-Man. It was on the Charlton characters.
Yeah.
And Ditko actually wrote back in like pencil, and just basically was like, "I have no touch to those today." Like, and it was, but he got a response, which was a miracle.
Yeah, you never get that. And I did gravitate to the Charlton characters too, just following his artwork. That's how moved I was by his rendition of Spider-Man. I followed him to those Charlton comic books, so that's incredible.
As I'm talking to you, on my desk is a John Romita drawn Spider-Man that he did as a thank you to me for some money I raised for the comic book community for the older guys who have no money.
Yeah.
And I open up the mail one day, and I keep it on my desk. I look at it every day. Is John Romita doing Spider-Man? That art, when you find that artist, for me it was George Perez. Like, you find that artist, you will follow them anywhere.
Yeah. For me, it was Ditko. This is great stuff. Brad, I could probably talk to you for 2-3 hours, but the new book is The Escape Artist. I'll be trolling your Instagram later today and that's what I love the most. You reminded me of Stan's soapbox. I forgot that ever existed. So that's why I was so tickled by what I saw. I'm like, I forgot the whole Nuff said, and he's just
come on, you got to tell me that you at least once tried to go for a no prize.
I did get a letter printed in the back of a comic book.
What was your comic?
I'm embarrassed to tell you, man. It was Welcome Back, Cotter.
Dude, that's a great one. I thought I was gonna top you, but I can't top that. Mine was Infinity Incorporated.
I mean, was Welcome Back, Kotter even, I don't even think it was Marvel, and I just said, this is great, keep up the good work. And they printed it.
Fantastic, man.
They probably weren't getting it. Yeah, I'll try.
Most people can't top my Infinity Incorporated for nerdiness, but I think you might have just done it.
I'm going to screenshot it, and I'll send it to you on Instagram. You'll crack up, man.
I can't wait. I want to see it.
Brad Meltzer, always a pleasure. Good luck with the new book, The Escape Artist, and I love chatting with you, man. We'll talk soon.
Always, brother. Thanks so much.
And it's Vinnie Penn again, filling in for Jeff here on the Kuhner Report. It's been so great hearing from so many of you Boston area and beyond. Gentleman calling in a little while ago from Oklahoma. I'd like to revisit a little something he had mentioned. We're at 617-266-6868, and so much more coming your way, but I'd love to hear from you. You can tweet at me at Vinnie Penn as well. He had mentioned, he was talking about a movement afoot, and that it was a movement begun when Ronald Reagan took office. It's interesting, especially as I wait to see what Putin says and or does next. He's in his fourth and probably last term. You don't want to go out with a bang, kind of a bang. Just around the corner, we'll have Michael Dougherty. He's a cybersecurity expert, California-based, who seems to think Russia's quote-unquote Pearl Harbor will be a cyber one. But as far as a call from Oklahoma is concerned, and this movement, this rebirth is what he called it, as far as the Republican Party's concerned, with Ronald Reagan. As a 50-year-old, I can tell you, I vividly recall that election. I vividly recall the Jimmy Carter years, mostly because that was probably the only time my dinner table, my childhood home, politics occasionally bubbled to the surface. Otherwise, I've often described it. I'm the youngest of four. My mother, my father, both passed away. They just sat there smoking cigarettes, and it was like a roast. And every night it was somebody's turn to be roasted. So we got pretty good. It was ball breaking training. That's what I often refer to it as. But during the Carter years, my father, whose political inclinations, more than anything, he felt he needed to force upon or heap upon his children. But I remember him bemoaning gas prices and the fact that we could only get our gas. I think we were a Tuesday, Thursday family. It was like every other day. I'm sure many of you recall that. And it was due to the last number in your license plate. And I'll never forget sitting in the back seat of his Ford Falcon waiting to the line to get into the gas station. It's astonishing. It's a snapshot of my childhood. Never happened before, never happened after, ever. Blocks away from the gas station just to get gas on a certain day. You think about telling today's kids that, they'd be so hard pressed to believe that ever happened. But it did. And we had the hostage crisis. Now, as an 8th grader, current events was a class. It was a chilling time in my childhood, on the brink of 14, and knowing these hostages, these Americans, and paving the way for ISIS in the sense that they would show us footage, they would show us pictures of our own being held hostage. And we talked about it in school every day, and it was like we were all together. It did feel as if we were all in agreement that it was wrong, that nothing better happened to them, and they better get home and get home safe. As a 14-year-old boy, I was also, it was a time where talk of the draft coming back round, and I remember my mother at the dinner table was panicking. It's staying right in front of me. She had 2 boys and 2 girls, staying right in front of what's he going to do? He'll be killed in a minute. Maybe his feet can get him out. It's become a Trump joke, hasn't it? But It seemed like something that lay in wait. The Russian threat would only be a few years later. Ronald Reagan would squash that, and just as he squashed the Iran hostage crisis. I remember the day that he was sworn in, the January day. I really do. This isn't theatrics. I'm not good enough to make up such a story. And that we were told in school, at St. Bernadette School, New Haven, Connecticut, the hostages are home. I mean, he had been sworn in, what? I'm no historian. I don't... 20 minutes earlier? And I remember we were in the parking lot. They had rung the bell, and you formed the line. First grade, second grade, third grade. And I was in eighth grade. High school awaited. And you didn't sweat. There were not all these protocols. The only protocol was you went in by your grade. And I remember they shouted out, "The hostages are home." We were in it together, man. And I don't know why I did, paving the way for a melancholy, an angst-fueled high school career. I looked up to a blue sky. And I do remember, I guess I was a bit of a nervous wreck as a kid. I mean, being 13, 14, the hostage crisis, these long lines just to get gas. Your father suddenly out of nowhere bemoaning our financial worrying about money. 4 kids who college might not be in our future anymore. Maybe it was a more nerve-wracking time than I thought. But I remember looking up at that sky and where I was in line, who isn't Frank DeLucia in front of me, Lauren Mancini behind, and thinking, all right, everything's going to be good now. And I really did. I didn't know Republican and Democrat, and my family's very divided in that way. There's a Republican side, there's a Democrat side, and I grew up watching those sides go at it on Thanksgiving and Christmas, and pretty early on decided Vindependent would probably serve me well. Play on words there. But on that day, I looked up to a clear blue January sky, and Ronald Reagan was our president now, and they were home. Those hostages were home. We could later say, oh, Carter played a key role in it, this and that. But we all felt on the same page that day across this country. And I breathed a sigh of relief that lasted 8 years. But here is Russia all over again. We got more on that right around the corner. It's Vinnie Penn in for Jeff on the Kuhner Report, the great RKO.
The voice of Boston is you. 680 WRKO Boston, 100.7 WZLX HD2 Boston, an iHeart radio station.